how can I better influence others in order to get the project done efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, this is just like a tool that we've included in some of our leadership development programs before, and I personally find very helpful.
Hi there, welcome to my channel. My name is Rachel. In today's episode, I'm going to interview my good friend Jackie. She currently works as a diversity and inclusion lead at a Fortune 500 pharmaceutical company. In her years of experience in organizational behaviors at consulting company and hedge fund, she has learned a ton in leadership development. And as a minority, how can you increase your visibility and voice in corporate America? If you like this episode, please like, subscribe to my channel, and leave your comments, suggestions, and questions in the comment section. One quick question from one of the followers who wanted to know, after Black Lives Matter movement, did you see any shifts in the company's people operation or HR department? Do you see any changes?
You mean like in terms of what? In terms of,
I guess like the focus or personnel changes. Do you think the company has upped its investment in diversity and inclusion, or?
oh yes, that for sure. If that person meant, oh, did we like promote a bunch of minorities or women? No, at least not based on my observation. But if are we saying like, oh, are companies like doubling down on R&D efforts? Are companies expanding R&D D&I resources? Then the answer is yes. Like for example, my previous company, they never had a D&I function, right? They started a brand new D&I function, and my current company just doubled the size of the D&I team. Right, it's definitely getting a lot more like traction and resources.
It would be great to also hear your perspective and thoughts on, as a minority, I see myself as Asian American woman, like this is the identity that is near and dear to my heart. So whenever I interview with a company, I always want to learn more about their current practice of diversity and inclusion. I try to look for people like me in the marketing team. I once worked for organizations where I am the only Asian female in that team. So as a minority woman in especially like corporate America in a big company, how can we make our voice heard and increase visibility within the company? It doesn't have to be just women per se, but as any kind of like minority or anyone who might consider himself or herself as like in a minority group.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are things we can do, like small things we can do in meetings to get our voices heard, right? So for example, like make sure you get like agenda in advance, formulate your thinking before the meeting. Like for me, I tend to be like a listener. I tend to be very quiet in meetings, but then you're not really getting the exposure or visibility in front of critical leaders, for example, right? So my mentor was like, just make sure you at least say one thing in the meeting, and that's already good enough. So every meeting, like I try to set a goal to say at least one thing, right? And obviously it can be, something that's like not meaningful, but like contribute even to like reinforce other people's idea. At least you're saying something. Or even to like recap what someone else has said at the end of the meeting, that could help as well. And like personally for me, I don't react very well in real time. Like I like to know exactly what I'm walking into so I can prepare my thoughts. So oftentimes I will try to see if I can get agenda in advance so I can start to think about it.
And you the notes and questions in advance.
Exactly. Yeah. And then there are also like other things you can do. Like for example, you just mentioned the API group, right, at your company. I think most companies have those things, have those programs, right? And sign up to join, and even sign up for leadership positions, right? Even though it is more work on top of a day job, but it gives you very, very good opportunities to get exposure to different parts of the organization, get exposure to leadership. And I will have to say that based on my experience, again, I don't mean to generalize, right? But I do find Asian employees that I've worked with a little bit more passive when it comes to joining those groups. Like for example, when we did the anti-Asian hate conversations, a lot of Black employees, they came to support as allies for Asians, right? However, when we did conversations about the George Floyd's trial, which was really heavily impacting the Black community, very few Asian colleagues showed up. And it was a little bit disappointing, to be honest. And I just felt like we're not really like showing up as much as I would have hoped. So that's one thing, definitely participate in that. And there's some like other things. There's another thing, like we need to be vocal. Like it doesn't hurt to ask for things. Like I think at the beginning of my career, I really regretted not expressing what I wanted, right? If you want a promotion, start asking for it. I realized like if you don't ask for it, people are not going to give it to you. And once you ask for it, obviously you have to ask for it in a very diplomatic way, right? You can't be like, oh, I deserve this like promotion in a very entitled way. But once you ask, once you express it, you get on people's radar, and then people will start to like think of you when they need to assign a new, like a stretch assignment, for example, right? And I told you I used to do leadership development program, and oftentimes those leadership development programs is nomination based. So program manager would go to HR, would go to managers and ask, hey, do you have any high potential employees on your team that you would like to nominate for this program? And if your manager knows, hey, you want to, you see yourself having a long-term career at this company, you want to be developed, they're more likely to send you to those programs, which will set you up for success and help accelerate your career, right? So really like about get your voice out there, like let people know your intention.
Yeah, I think it's also about how you can make yourself seen by the right people, and in collaborating with different departments, you have to figure out how to influence others as well, not just your manager. So in the past, we have another event where you actually show us kind of an influential, how to map out your game plan for influencing others. If you don't mind showing that chart or that graphic again, and kind of walk us through the best approach to plot your moves to influence others. And just stay with me, because whenever I walk into a new organization, whenever I start a new project and have to collaborate with people I never worked with before, even nowadays, I still think about how can I better influence others in order to get the project done efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, this is just like a tool that we've included in some of our leadership development programs before, and I personally find very helpful, just like a framework to help guide people's thinking. Let me share my screen. Can you see the graph?
I can see it.
Okay. Yeah. So when it comes to sort of like influencing stakeholders, get things done, get the desired outcome you want, we can look at two dimensions. So if you look at the bottom, interest, that's essentially level of interest / support. So how likely is that individual going to support you? How much sort of self-interest does he or she has in this particular effort, right? And on the y-axis on the here, you have level of influence. Like, what is this individual's level of power or influence at the organization, right? How much say does he or she have? And if you plot it this way, let's start from the upper right-hand side. Those are what we call champions, right? They want to support, they have strong interest in this effort, and they have influence. So those are the champions, endorsers that you want to manage very, very closely. You want to make sure they continue to engage and help you remove any obstacles. And if we move to the upper left, those are people who are high influence. However, they don't have much interest in supporting you. So these are what we call blockers, right? So those people are the individuals who might potentially cause problems for you to advance your agenda. And for those individuals, you need to figure out a way to keep them satisfied, to meet their needs. And we can talk a little bit more about that later. And on the bottom left, those people, they don't have much interest, they don't have much support, and they have like low influence. Those are what we call like cynics, right? you don't really have to care too much about them, but it's important to monitor their sentiment, get a pulse. And then bottom right, you have people who want to support you, who have high interest. However, they don't have much say at the organization. Maybe they're more like entry level, junior level employees. And for those individuals, those are supporters, like general supporters. You want to keep them informed and engaged, but you may not need to manage as closely as you do with the champion group, right?
Question.
Yeah,
Difference between keeping informed versus managing closely. Can you give us an example of each approach?
Yeah, sure. So keeping informed could be as simple as like writing a monthly email just to keep people informed on the progress, right? It's very, very like low touch, I would say. And then manage closely is very high touch. Like for example, you would bring proposal to those individuals, get their reactions, right? Get their buy-in. So at the end of the day, you can say, oh, like so and so already have input into this. Like I already ran this by XYZ person. Like this will really help you to like push things forward easier. And also manage closely. You can like continue to if you have an impact report, for example, let's say there's some strong outcome coming out of an effort, you can go to these individuals and share that, right? To help them understand the impact that they're making, to help understand the impact of this project. So they are more likely to further support you, right? And then you can even leverage them to help you, we call neutralize the resistance, right? You neutralize the resistance from people who have low interest but high influence. Like, so for example, I'm just making this up, right? So for example, some of the HR projects or some of the projects I run can be very, very expensive. And you may get some resistance from, our finance partner saying like, you really need this. We don't have the funding for this, right? And then how do you leverage people from this corner, from the manage closely corner, to help you talk to those individuals in the keep satisfied corner to neutralize the resistance, right? And also when it comes to keep satisfied, like everyone has their own agenda, right? And so, for example, if from the finance department, their agenda is to save the company money. So when you go to them, you need to understand their psychology, what's important to them. And you can say, by running this program in the long term, we can save a company XYZ amount of money. Or you can say through this program, we can retain our high performers, which is tied to XYZ saving, right? And attrition will cost the company even more. So really speak their language and try to think from, okay, what do they care about? What makes them tick? Things like that. So that's sort of like the difference between these groups.
Great. Very, very helpful. I'm going to apply that next Monday.
That is helpful.
If you don't mind, like stop sharing, we're going to switch back to the panel view. And I would like to ask a follow-up question. Speaking of managers, I have a friend who has trouble dealing with micromanager. As you know, there are different leadership styles. You probably can recognize that from your past experience doing leadership coaching. So there are people out there who like to micromanage others and care about every single detail. So how can employees deal with micromanagers properly?
Yeah, that's really tough. And to be honest, I don't really have like the magic solution. And I think when it comes to micromanager, oftentimes it's very difficult to change that individual. And instead of you changing the manager, we just have to adapt and adjust ourselves, right? And I would recommend first is try to understand why that person is being such a micromanager, right? Is it just because it's that person's personality, right? It's just that person's upbringing, or is there like something about trust, right? Did you previously make like one tiny mistake and then the trust was broken and now this manager feels like he or she needs to stay right on top of you? Or maybe they're getting a lot of pressure from their manager, right, to produce, to perform, which is why they are being micromanaged. And there could be so many different reasons. And if you can identify what the reason is, it's more likely you can tackle it, right? So for example, if it's a trust issue due to some small misunderstanding in the past or small mistake in the past, then you can really try to like address that, right? Either through conversation or through like consistent performance over time. And if it's about external factors like, oh, he or she is getting a lot of pressure from their boss, then maybe like when you submit something, you can be like, oh, so and so would like, I think so and so would like this, right? So it's like saying what you think that manager's manager would like, or what that manager's manager would like to see, to sort of like influence a little bit, if that makes sense.
But before we end, also would like to hear your thoughts on, I know you recently turned 30, or like, you're like me.
I'm already 31.
Yes, exactly. We're still like just young and kind of mature.
Yeah, very young, very young. 30 is the new 20.
Exactly. We're still young and very energetic and optimistic about our future. So looking back and also looking forward, what are some of your like self-reflection after you turn 30 in terms of your long-term vision for your career? Because as you mentioned earlier, like D&I is kind of like a niche career path right now. Where do you see yourself, or where do you want to go from here?
Yeah, sure. I mean, lots of self-reflection, but I just want to highlight maybe two. Number one is definitely wish I had started like getting work experiences earlier. So I didn't do, for example, any internship during my college time. Back then, it didn't even occur to me I needed those. So I didn't start like getting like work experience until grad school. And I think that's a little bit late. And even nowadays, people graduate college with like 2-3 different internships. That's like super impressive. So that's one sort of, I would say, maybe like regrets or things I wish I had known better. And the other thing is like, I think this is like advice that I personally found really, really helpful for me, is I used to set sort of like very short-term goals. And once I accomplished them, I realized it brought me lots of unhappiness. So for example, my goal is to get into, like a top firm. And once I got there, it's like, okay, what's next? Right. And then I used to set goals, okay, by, age X, I need to make X amount of money. Right. And when I finally got there, I was like maybe really excited for 2 weeks, and then I felt underpaid again. Right. It's like the human greed.
Yeah, it's like, oh God, I can finally relax a bit after I achieved that promotion. And then it's like, I have to start the process all over again, because there's just
right.
emptiness after you finally get there. And
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Lots of emptiness. The happiness is very, very, very temporary. And I started to ask myself, I was like, why is that? Like, why the emptiness, right? And then I realized, I can't remember which book I was reading, but they were like, don't set short-term goals that you can accomplish eventually, because once you accomplish it, it will only bring you emptiness. Instead, have like more like long-term or even unobtainable goals. And what they meant is having a goal that is very grand, right? Like, so for example, my current goal is I really want to change the perception of Asian employees at the workplace, right? I want to help people break the bamboo ceiling, right? I want to help people break the glass ceiling. And that is not a goal that can be accomplished even till the day I die, right? It's like such a big thing that's not going to be accomplished in my lifetime, and even 2 lifetimes, right? It's going to be an ongoing battle. And however, everything I do every day will contribute to that goal, right? So that really motivates me. And as long as what I do helps me move a little bit closer to that goal, I'm like very happy. And it doesn't bring me any of the emptiness that I used to have, right? And they were also like saying, like, for example, people like LeBron James, right? His goal is not to get XYZ, like how many like NBA rings, right? His goal currently is to almost like transform the well-being of the Black community, change the way people look at Black people, right? He's doing so much charity work too, right? And when you do that, it's not likely that you're going to feel that same level of emptiness, because otherwise you're like, okay, I need to get 10 rings in my life. Okay, once you get there, now what?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Also feel like that goal should be tied to the greater community and not just a selfish goal. So I guess I can say my grand's goal is to get 1 million YouTube subscribers. unattainable because I'm only at 200 right now, or like not even close to 200. My goal in the short term is to get to 1,000, but it seems like I
That
could.
can be a little milestone of a bigger goal, right? No, but if you do that, it's gonna be discouraging if you don't see that number go up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would recommend you not changing your goal a little bit.
My goal is to work with you to also create more people like you to create more content that could help
Here you go. Yes.
identify talent in the workplace. Greatly appreciate your time and all the insightful insights.
Hopefully it's helpful.
I was
Probably scrambled a little bit.
into D and I, and also a piece of yourself too. I found touched by your personal experience and your motivation. And moving forward, I'm going to set better goals than you, Jen.
Sounds good.
Again, and hopefully we'll have you back again in the future to talk specifically about breaking the bamboo ceiling, because that's
Yeah,
also
sure. I need to figure that out myself first. But always happy to chat.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Rachel.
Great day.
You too. Thanks all for tuning in.
If you are interested in hearing more, please subscribe to my channel, leave your comments and suggestions in the comment section below, and stay tuned. We'll see you next time. Bye.